Trump just picked a fight he was never going to win. 2 hours ago, the United States Trade Representative formally notified Canada that Bill C-11, the Online Streaming Act, constitutes a violation of USMCA trade commitments, and that the White House is preparing retaliatory tariffs worth billions of dollars if Ottawa does not suspend the law within 30 days. Not a negotiation, not a request. A threat delivered in writing with a deadline attached. The law requires Netflix, Disney+, YouTube, and Amazon Prime to redirect roughly $500 million annually in Canadian revenues into the production and promotion of Canadian content. Washington calls it a trade barrier. Ottawa calls it sovereignty. And Mark Carney just made clear which side of that argument Canada is standing on. The USTR notification has 3 components Washington believed would force Ottawa to the table. First, the United States is challenging the discoverability provisions of C-11, which require streaming algorithms to actively surface Canadian content to Canadian users. Silicon Valley calls this government interference in private technology infrastructure. Second, Washington is challenging the financial contribution framework itself, arguing that forcing foreign platforms to fund domestic content violates national treatment obligations under USMCA. The implied tariff threat covers digital services and platform-adjacent exports worth an estimated $8.2 billion annually. Third, and this is what stunned Ottawa, the notification includes a demand that Canada consult Washington before implementing any future digital regulatory framework touching American platform operators. In plain language, Washington wants a veto over Canadian internet policy. The logic inside the White House was straightforward. Canada's digital entertainment landscape is dominated by American platforms. Every major streaming relationship Canadians have runs through Silicon Valley. Apply enough financial pressure and Ottawa would quietly walk back the most aggressive provisions, preserve the headline while gutting the substance. That is how these things are supposed to work. But this is where Washington fundamentally misread the room. Mark Carney was not surprised. He was ready. 50 minutes after the USTR notification became public, Carney appeared at a podium in Ottawa, flanked by the Minister of Canadian Heritage and the Minister of Innovation. He did not look like a man responding to a crisis. He looked like a man executing a plan that had been sitting in a drawer, waiting for exactly this moment. 4 words immediately started circulating in diplomatic channels across 3 continents. Canada is not negotiating. Then he laid out what Canada would do instead. First, Bill C-11 will be fully implemented with 0 modifications. The $500 million content fund proceeds. The discoverability requirements proceed. Carney stated plainly that no foreign government's commercial interests override a law passed by a democratically elected parliament after 2 years of public consultation. Canada's legal team noted the American argument has a structural problem. Every G7 nation maintains domestic content support frameworks. If the USTR position holds, it invalidates cultural exemption provisions that have existed in multilateral trade law for decades. That counterargument has been in preparation for 14 months. Second, Canada filed a formal dispute under the USMCA. Chapter 31 mechanism, legally blocking the United States from imposing retaliatory tariffs while adjudication runs. The filings were pre-drafted. The legal team was pre-assembled. The moment the USTR notification landed, the clock started running in Canada's favor. The dispute process takes a minimum of 18 months. Third, Carney announced accelerated digital governance alignment with the European Union and the United Kingdom. Both the EU's Audiovisual Media Services Directive and the UK's Online Safety Act contain content obligations that go further than C-11. Canada is now formally aligning with European and British digital standards. Netflix, Disney+, and Amazon, now face a coordinated multi-jurisdictional regulatory environment where the Canadian model is being validated and extended rather than isolated and reversed. The USTR wanted to make an example of Canada. Instead, Canada just became the anchor of a Western digital sovereignty coalition. Fourth, Carney announced a $120 million Canadian AI research initiative focused on open-source content recommendation technology that public broadcasters globally can deploy without depending on American platform infrastructure. Canada is not just defending a law. Canada is building the technical alternative to the system that law is designed to regulate. The economic reality Washington underestimated runs deep. Netflix alone generates an estimated $1.5 to $2 billion annually from Canadian subscribers. Amazon, Disney+, and YouTube add several billion more. Under C11, roughly $500 million flows back into Canadian production. The platforms are not being asked to operate at a loss. They are being asked to reinvest a fraction of what they extract. Every comparable framework in Europe operates on this logic and has survived legal challenge. Washington knows this. The USTR notification was never about legal merit. It was about deterrence. And that calculation just failed. The American industry response was not uniform. Several major Hollywood studios privately expressed discomfort with the USTR's posture. Warner Brothers Discovery, Paramount, and Sony all operate major production facilities in Vancouver and Toronto, the third largest film and television hub in North America. Studio executives began reaching out to congressional offices within hours, urging restraint. The Silicon Valley platforms wanted a fight. Hollywood's production divisions were considerably less enthusiastic. Internationally, the European Commission noted that domestic cultural support frameworks are consistent with long-standing trade law principles. The UK expressed support for Canada's position. Australia, developing its own streaming regulation, was watching Carney's legal strategy closely. Canada was not isolated. The American position was. Trump now has three paths and none lead where he wanted. He can pursue the retaliatory tariffs and trigger a counter-escalation that alienates every allied nation currently watching while disrupting North American production relationships worth billions. He can quietly withdraw the USTR notification, publicly admitting the threat failed. Or he can allow the USMCA dispute process to run, a process Canada entered with 14 months of legal preparation, European regulatory backing, and structural trade law precedent on its side. None of these delivers what Washington wanted, which was Ottawa backing down before this went public. 2 hours ago, the White House thought it was disciplining a trading partner that had overstepped. 2 hours later, that trading partner had triggered an international legal process aligned with European digital governance standards, announced a sovereign technology initiative, and confirmed that not a single comma of the law would change under threat. Mark Carney did not respond to this confrontation. He had already prepared for it. Washington wanted to teach Canada a lesson about platform economics. Canada may have just taught the world what digital sovereignty looks like when a government is genuinely serious about defending it. And right now, the White House does not have an answer for any of it. Do you think Canada can lead this digital sovereignty war? Or will the power of Silicon Valley eventually force Ottawa to back down? Let's meet in the comments.